Our top story this hour: the death toll from the novel coronavirus in Brazil has surpassed 87,000 as the Ministry of Health reported 555 deaths in the past 24 hours. More than 24,500 new infections were also recorded in the same period. That brings the total number of infections to more than 2.4 million cases. This has prompted authorities in Rio de Janeiro to cancel the traditional New Year's Eve celebrations to prevent more people from getting infected. Brazil is the worst hit country by the pandemic in the world, followed by the US. The United States has over 4.2 million infections and 147,000 deaths. Daniel Shaw is a professor of Latin American studies and he joins us now. Professor, welcome. The increasing cases of coronavirus cases, both fatalities and infections, just show no signs of ending.
Yeah, it's very telling that the top countries in the world impacted by the coronavirus are the United States, Brazil, India. These are fascist regimes. Certainly in the case of Trump and Bolsonaro, these are coronavirus deniers. Bolsonaro is now trying to say, after testing positive for the coronavirus, that he was in fact negative. He's trying to downplay the fact that he was sick, along with close family members. And yeah, it's months away before 2021, and it's months away before the carnival in February of next year. But the Brazilian authorities are already taking measures because of how disastrous the handling of this pandemic has been up to this point.
That speaks volumes. I mean, when you could announce that a few weeks prior to New Year's Eve, the celebrations have been cancelled. It's July. Does that highlight the gravity of the situation?
It seems that somebody in the health ministry is trying to get ahead of the game, given all the mistakes that have been made. Bolsonaro, like Trump, has been at war with the health ministers. Bolsonaro has fired 2 health ministers. Other officials have resigned. So there's all types of infighting. There's not a uniform, united approach. And I think it's a very telling moment for humanity to look at how the capitalist countries, the neoliberal colonies have done versus the socialist countries versus the countries that have sought to be self-determining. And it really goes back to Rosa Luxemburg's quote from some 100 years ago that this is not a choice between capitalism and socialism, it's a choice between capitalism and annihilation.
Finally, Professor Shaw, you mentioned, the United States, Brazil, India, economies that are supposedly thriving, yet they have the largest coronavirus outbreaks. And just coming back to President Bolsonaro, who has come under fire for his handling of the pandemic, belittling the crisis, to what extent has he contributed to the unfortunate death of tens of thousands of Brazilians?
Oh, he's been completely neglectful. Bolsonaro is out of touch with the hundreds and hundreds of favelas across Brazil. The indigenous people of the Amazon and beyond have been impacted severely. So it's the most oppressed layers, the Afro-Brazilians, the indigenous, the everyday workers. Brazil is an apartheid-like society, a super socially stratified society, no different than post-apartheid South Africa, India, the US. These are the things that define capitalism in 2 extreme poles, one of wealth and one of extreme misery. And we know the Brazilians who are doing all of the dying, of course, second in the world in terms of amount of cases and number of deaths. And this is because of this neoliberal mode of development, which goes against everything that Lula and Dilma Rousseff stand for. And it's really a twin pandemic. It's the pandemic of coronavirus and it's the pandemic of political repression, as Bolsonaro and his agents continue to strike out against the Workers' Party because they're so nervous about a potential PT, a Lula PT victory in 2022.
Interesting points there raised, Danny. As always, thank you very much for your contribution. Danny Shaw, Professor of Latin American Studies, joining us out of New York. Stay safe out there.